Welcome to the lighter side of the spectrum, the podcast that celebrates the multiple hats we wear and the juggling acts we perform in life. Whether you're parenting kids and teens on the autism spectrum, navigating the ever-evolving healthcare industry, or building a more inclusive and impactful world, this is your space to find connection, inspiration, and growth. Together, we'll share stories, tackle challenges, and explore how innovation and inclusion create better outcomes for everyone. Because no matter the spectrum, there's always a lighter side. Now here's your host, David Kaufer.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the lighter side of the spectrum. I am David Kaufer, and this is where we spotlight stories of transformation, change, and human connection within the autism community and beyond. Today's guest is someone I've been wanting to talk to for a long time. Finally, we have a chance to get together, and this will be great. It's Maria Galifianakis. Did I get it? Galifianakis. All right. I've been practicing, thanks for the YouTube. But Maria is the mother of 18-year-old Imani, a bright and determined non-speaking teen whose life changed when she found access to spelled communication. But Maria is more than just a parent advocate. She's a real powerhouse. Former National Institute of Health executive with deep expertise in autism research, Maria recently launched a nonprofit that we'll be talking about called Helios Rising, and it's already making waves. In just a few short months, Helios Rising has helped more than 300 individuals and families access communication support and break free from outdated, limited narratives about non-speakers. So today we're going to talk about what changed with spelling, or as I like to call it, cognitive communication. Why so many families still struggle to access communication methods that work. We want to talk about the science, skepticism, and soul of being an autism parent advocate in 2025, and the nonprofit, how Helios Rising is trying to build something new. So with that, let's get into it. Maria, thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much, David. Great to be with you.
Yeah, like we were saying, this has been a long time coming. We were able to get things aligned, but glad we're getting to it. So let's just start from the top. Maria, tell us a little bit about the early days. What was Imani's world like before she gained access to spelled communication? What was the journey kind of like in those early days, the challenges and the turning points?
Imani was a very, very high support person from the beginning. She regressed at about 15, 18 months. She regressed big time. She started having seizures. With the seizures came other things. She was battling GI issues, really, really severe stuff. Sensitivities, impulsiveness, just hyperactive, just really all over the place. And we didn't know what was wrong. In fact, we were denied at the beginning that anything was wrong. And I took her to doctor after doctor, something's going on. She's regressing. She's lost her babbling at the time.
Right. That sounds familiar.
Does it? She lost language, and I went to the director of developmental pediatrics. Please help me. Something's wrong. No. You are one of the moms that suffers from excessive Googling.
Oh.
And, yeah. And that's in writing on an exam report.
Oh my gosh.
She's fine. By the time she's 3.5, you won't be able to tell her apart in the playground. So I fought real hard and got a second opinion.
Good.
Because I needed to be proven wrong that she was having seizures. And we were being told that she's just tired, she's falling to the ground. And
You're kidding me. They're denying seizures. That you as a mother are witnessing these, and they're saying you're making it up.
I think they're denying a mother, a shrill mother. I had a newborn at the time. I just moved into town with the Navy. We drove from Florida the 15 hours to Virginia Beach. We didn't know anyone or anything. And it was a total denial that anything was wrong with her. And I wanted to believe it. My husband was high-fiving me on the way out, and I just couldn't let
Because
it
he's
go.
like, hey, nothing, see, nothing's wrong. We're good.
Nothing's wrong. And he really wanted to hear that.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we all would, right?
Yeah. So I got a second opinion, and the second opinion was even worse.
Oh, no.
What,
Oh,
what are you,
geez.
a doctor? I'm the doctor. What you need is Flintstones vitamins.
Oh, my
Don't you
gosh.
tell me. So long story, very long. I was denied an EEG then too. And that was the co-director of developmental pediatrics at our local, beautiful, big children's hospital system. It's really, really a flourishing system. So I did go up to Johns Hopkins to Baltimore, threw my daughter in the car, and she had one of those seizures as the doctor, who I didn't know, but I booked urgently, was as he was walking in behind us, she dropped.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he dove and he got her and he looked up at me very dramatically and quickly and he said, "Your daughter is very ill." And I just lost it. I said, "Yes, I know." And
Oh,
he
my
really made
gosh.
everything happen. Yeah, Dr. Andrew Zimmerman.
Wow.
Yeah, so he called these guys down here, and the rest is us battling the seizures for her young life and trying to figure out what's going on. We didn't know. We were exhausted. And cut to various early interventions, schooling, therapies. None of them, none of them seemed appropriate or effective.
Now, were you also coached or led to, like you said, therapies? So I'm assuming, again, just based on the timeline and others, we've talked to here on the podcast, and we talked about our age and the age of our, kids are pretty similar. So
Yeah,
like ABA therapy, I would imagine
right.
was in the mix.
Right. As I got involved in how to deal with this, I wanted to do the very best
Of
thing I
course.
could. And,
Yeah.
we were strong people. My husband was able to work, and we figured, the very best would be 40 hours of ABA therapy a week,
40 hours. Wow.
full time.
Full time. Yeah.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
one moment, not a brief moment was successful in any way. In fact, it became extremely toxic and combative before I knew to be suspicious about ABA.
Well,
The
I mean, how could you be suspicious of it?
no,
Because,
right.
right, everyone, I mean, that was the gold standard
It
at the
was the
time.
thing,
That
right?
was the thing.
Yeah. Oh, it
It's
was
data driven, right? Like this is the only data
evidence-based.
driven method, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it really was so many hours of nothingness. And I was 150% involved. I considered myself an amateur ABA technician. I was required to study. I was
Wow.
required to participate, and I was good with that. I mean, it was important, but it was an incredible big fat zero.
And how many years did you guys do ABA?
We were in for almost 6 years.
Oh, wow. That's a
Right.
long time.
Yes.
That's a huge investment. I mean, just in terms of time, effort, resources, all of that. Wow. That's
It was a full-time thing for me. That is what I did. I did have Ivani's brother is 1 year younger. So
right. That's right. You were mentioning that. Yeah.
yeah, so he was quite manageable and very independent, and that's what we did all day long was ABA or take a break and go to speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy. And that was the whole world of it.
So let's fast forward. There's some other things I want to get to, particularly, again, your background at NIH and working in autism research and how that's helped you. But why don't you just fast forward real quickly in terms of the timeline and gaining, how did you learn about, spelling? Was it spelling to communicate, speller's
Right,
methodology, RPM? They're all so similar. Cognitive
right.
communication, I say, but how
Yeah.
did you discover it?
I did not have the goal of achieving communication for Ivani on my radar.
Hmm.
She couldn't use her hands at all. It didn't even occur to me to make that
Right.
connection to motor driven communication. But I did happen to see a video from Soma
Okay.
many years ago. It was about 13 years ago now. I saw a short video of a young girl, autistic girl, who who moved like Ivani,
Oh,
very,
interesting.
very spastic movements and this dance movements and the hands and the everything. And there, it was a video that showed her as the first time she ever spelled, which they called it, I don't remember what they called it at the time, but they,
Right. They had different
yeah,
terminology.
they had other terminology. Yeah, but she was pointing to letters on a
Yeah.
stencil letterboard.
She was communicating. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a few seconds. She looked like my daughter. It
Mhm.
showed her in the end that did it, and I thought this is really interesting. And I went to a national autism conference where Soma was going to be speaking, and I went and saw her speak, and sure enough, she's very brilliant. I'm sure you've heard that.
Oh, absolutely.
She's
Yeah.
yeah, she's super smart and just kind of with it, and her speech was fascinating, very compelling, very interesting. A little hard to keep up with at the time, but okay.
Right. Kind of like
It,
drinking from a fire hose a little
it was
bit.
real different information.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it still differs, that her science differs from some of the other science. It's not in its essentials, but in its manifestation, how she explains it.
Right.
But and I booked a team that was there. I actually thought I was booking Soma, but I booked a team that was there who would come to your hometown if you paid them the right amount of money, get other families
Okay.
together, and you can bring them and do a thing.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah. Yeah. I've
I
heard of that.
yeah, this is it. We will, we didn't, my husband was a younger officer in the Navy, which is, you know, just a regular paying job, if anything.
Yeah.
And our expenses were massive, as you know,
I
anything,
can only imagine.
medical, anything. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but we did it. We pulled it together when we had an event, and that was how we started. Um, I have to say that as wonderful as the event was, and we continued for the next many amount of years, my daughter was not successful with RPM, rapid
Interesting.
prompting method, Soma's method. Yeah, it was.
It just didn't click with her.
Now that I know the methods well,
Yeah.
it's just one of the mechanics of prompting was missing in Soma's method that my daughter responds to.
Got it.
Made the difference between spelling and not spelling, the ocular motor work specifically.
Yeah, you hear that a lot. The ocular
Yeah,
motor is so important. And again, overlooked, right? For
it
so
is. And
long. Again, something that just wasn't even
no,
on our radar at all. No, it's nothing you heard about or thought about testing or even knew how to test.
out of the blue, completely. No, no. Was really a big surprise. And once we sort of fizzled out of RPM. I went to different things. I took Ivani to different places, you know, to do it. We had a local practitioner here, kind of. It was a parent. There were RPM at the time was less structured that
Okay.
I think it is now. And it was never a communication method. It was an educational method.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
Yes,
so slightly
slightly
different
different.
goals.
With
Yeah.
the outcome would be that the person is communicating. They're communicating what they learned. Soma implemented a teach ask method that even though we were not successful with, it was I was flabbergasted that Ivani was interested.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the big kicker for the first time ever. And at that time, we considered it a matter of interest. We didn't consider it a matter of capability. But yeah,
And how old was she at this time? So again,
she
from kind of a timeline standpoint.
she was let's see, now I gotta count. She was that was about 12 years ago. She's 18. So
Okay.
yeah, so she was young. She was about 7 or 8. Does that math that sound right?
Yeah, that works
Something like that.
close enough.
Something, 4, 12.
Yeah.
It was, I met a parent recently who reminded me that we met 12 years ago at a SOMA event. So that's my one timeline milestone. So
Well, so you got in fairly early in terms,
yeah,
at least in terms of attempting to address it, you know, and with RPM and getting
right.
on the radar and getting involved at least. And that kind of got you on your way, it sounds like.
It did, and the one big takeaway from that was Soma was adamant about discussing that autistic people internally are in there, in
Yeah.
quotes. They're in there, they're intelligent, they should be treated as intelligent. The presumed competence that came out of that uh, under the radar Soma movement was huge. That was really different. And
And it still is, right?
and it still
Unfortunately.
is. I don't think at the time we realized how intact and how completely, thoroughly capable
Hmm.
non-speakers really are. At the time, it was a matter of, intelligent versus not intelligent.
Right. Right. I
Yeah,
mean, it was all based on um, you know, the disabilities, of course, that they have that we know now
right.
with their motor, I mean, all communication requires motor. But
Yes.
we didn't know that. No one told
No,
us that, right? Like again, it just wasn't on our radar at all.
no, it wasn't. And looking back, it just seems like such an obvious missing piece.
It
So
does.
obvious.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. Once you see it, initially, once you understand it, it's kind of like it hits you in the head, right? You're like, of
Yeah,
course,
all these
right.
years of ABA, of not being able to point to this or that. We had a very long period where they tried to teach her sign language,
Hmm.
which now is just, oh, could never, now would never consider it. I mean, it could never happen for very basic reasons that we understand now about apraxia.
Right, right. Oh, I can't tell you how many people, you know, through the years asked me that. Well, you know, have you tried sign language? Do you think he could do sign language? No, he can't. He physically was unable to
Literally,
do it. Literally could not do it. Like, so it just made no sense. I mean, all good intentions, of course,
yes.
but it just, you know, none of that worked. So you had a background in NIH, right? Working
Right.
in
Hmm.
autism research.
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
Later on, I did consulting for autism research, but
Got it.
initially, I was in corporate marketing
I remember
internationally.
you telling me about that. Yeah,
Hmm.
we share that background. We both have kind of our
Yep,
PR marketing background and
which now I'm just not crazy about it, but at the time it was pretty exciting,
oh, it's
especially, yeah,
fun. Yeah,
it
it
was
was
it was really fun. And but I got sick of kind of a bottom line situation, and
yeah.
that just didn't, as I've matured, it didn't appeal to me, I guess. And I went over to the nonprofit world through the National Cancer Institute.
Okay.
Yeah, and no, I was the director of the biggest cancer screening trial ever, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, prostate, lung, colorectal, and ovarian cancer screening, where we determined it was a longitudinal study, and it was going to be determined when and what types of screenings were effective. So, you need a prostate screening this often at this age and whatever. And it was super interesting. Yeah, I learned a
It
lot
sounds
at
like
that
it.
age. Yeah, it was thrilling.
How have you been able to kind of apply that experience, what you learned today in terms of both maybe the advocacy work that you do, but also maybe with Helios Rising? Is there anything that's kind of transferred
Yeah,
over?
there is, and it was indirect, but it changed my life. And I've applied it to everything since then. So interestingly, I was in Washington, D.C., in charge of this cancer screening trial, largest ever. It had to be 75,000 volunteers
Wow.
who were age eligible and could not have ever had any kind of cancer. And they were going to be followed for 17 years.
Whoa.
Yeah, huge
That's
thing.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was at Georgetown, and that was where my office was based. And right away, we got all these people signing up. I thought, gee whiz, we are blowing these numbers out of the water. Look at all these volunteers. We had mass mailings at the time, millions of pieces of mail going on for the community to volunteer for this cancer screening trial. And I had a milestone meeting with headquarters at some point, and they said to me, "How you doing?" I said, "Everything's amazing. It's great, whatever." They look at my numbers. They said, "Maria, these are all white people. This is not a DC population."
Mm,
I thought, "Oh, you're kidding." Yes, it's all white, educated, college educated, certain income level and above. They said to me, "This is not reflective of the real
right.
population. These are
Right.
people who like Georgetown."
Makes sense, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. So I had to go back to the drawing board and understand that. I mean, it was silly because I came as an educated, somewhat seasoned
sure.
executive, and I really didn't, I just missed that. It wasn't something that I'd come from Greece. It wasn't something that I had understood very well, the
Sure.
US dynamic of black and white and color.
Right. And they need to have, diversity when you're doing any type
Yeah,
of
and this,
research and
right, and this was such early days, early 90s. Diversity wasn't a thing.
that was a lifetime ago now. When you think
Yes,
about the
it
90s,
was.
right? Jeez.
Yeah, but I had to
So,
go back out and connect with the real community and appeal
yeah.
to the real community. And that was a hugely beneficial experience for my life. Really, it really stayed
Yeah.
with me forever. How silly and how narrow I had been thinking.
Well, and I know you've been really involved in the autism community as well. I know that when
Right.
we spoke earlier, you had talked about, you've gone to numerous conferences and involved in
And
a lot of
later
other
on,
organizations, right?
yeah,
Before,
yeah. After I had my daughter and couldn't work in a paid career capacity anymore, I did gratis consulting for lots of organizations that small and medium sized that were just trying to get off the ground, or if they were involved with autism research, I was happy to do it when I could. I
right.
I had went pro bono so that I didn't have any strings attached if I couldn't do something, or I could make
Wow.
a schedule. Yeah, but
That's nice.
yeah, so that was a really neat experience working on the medical research, the scientific research side. Um, there wasn't as much going on as I would have hoped, but some of the organizations really were working very, very hard to make strides in autism research.
Well, let's jump ahead then to your organization that you just rolled up your sleeves and said, I'm going to
Yeah,
start this, right? With Helios Rising. What take us to, that decision point. What made you decide to start it? You crazy fool. I mean, anyone start,
right.
um, but in all seriousness, what led to that, particularly when, there are so many different nonprofits focused on
Yes,
different aspects, right?
yes,
Of autism.
right. And I've, like many, many autism parents and family members and caregivers, I had no bandwidth for something like that. But I felt after seeing my daughter and how not only her life changed first and foremost, her future changed,
Yeah,
her
100%.
hope, her confidence, her body, everything changed that's going to be a part of her, but ours did as well.
Hmm.
The whole family, the household, the people who love us, everybody changed and grew from this one little thing It's
Isn't
not,
that amazing?
it's
I mean,
amazing.
it really is remarkable when you think about kind of BC in the form of, before communication, right? Life before communication for our children. Yeah, my son, your daughter, compared to after, and just how, like you said, it changes obviously their life tremendously and
Yes,
their trajectory. And as you mentioned, the confidence. I mean, it's just across the board, but the ripple effect is so profound.
yes.
The family, how it changes the dynamics, the energy level. I don't know if you found that as well.
Us too, as well. Everything changed. It all swept up into, it went from a
Hmm.
dark place, a sadder place. And we have a very happy, loving, very fun
Sure.
household. The boys are jokers, my son and my husband. They roughhouse with Ivani like she's a guy
That's
and
so
she
fun.
loves it. Yeah, it's really cute. But you know what I'm talking about. There's a dark undertone to anything because the future is bleak.
Exactly. The what I wrote about at the time when after Stone started communicating, after he started spelling, and again, this whole world kind of opened up. But the way I described it is that we went from this world where the future was the expectations were laid out clearly, but like you said, kind of bleakly. I mean, there was like a predictable pattern that the expectation was, but it wasn't a very bright one. It wasn't a very exciting one. It was kind of one that you accepted or tolerated.
Yes.
And like this is what it is, sort of a thing. And it was kind of like this, just like you said, dark, slow march. And for me, when I think back, and I don't do this often because, like you've said, we're we're similar in this way that we look forward. It's all about the future and what we can do. But you still do look back at times. It's hard not to, and just
Sure.
think about just how hard that was, and how hard that must have been for our kids too, because they knew it, right? And they wanted more, and they deserved more than what they were getting at that time.
I mean, that's a pervasive, it's not even a thought anymore. It's a whole feeling that I have. It's part of me that what was going on, what they must have felt like.
Hmm.
Could they have even dreamt of a different future? I don't know. And it's a
I know
big,
Stone
big
did. I
problem.
mean, he
And he,
yeah, he I know that the dream was there. Um, and there was some level of optimism there that he has shared, which is, makes me feel better. Yeah.
absolutely.
I know it was dark. It was obviously very hard. I think the worst thing for sure, and I'm sure you can relate to this, is just again that we talked about the cognitive, the expectations. He hated and still does that people just don't think he's smart. That's what drives him more than anything, is just to show that he is incredibly intelligent.
Yes.
Um, but that expectation, and that's again, I can't even imagine day after day to know that those around you, and including family members, we didn't know.
Yeah.
Like I said, we presumed a certain level of competence, had no idea because he had no way to share it. And those who were supposed to be supporting him certainly didn't presume it and didn't explore it nearly enough until we discovered spelling.
Right. Yes. It all leads to that. It
Yeah,
really does. And I have to say, now that you mentioned Stone, and that sentiment is so echoed by so many non-speaking
right.
people. It's just, yeah, how they're not as bitter. I don't know. I mean, I
I
think
think it's funny you mentioned that, Maria, because I was having that exact same conversation a few days ago at this surfing camp we went to. This autism inclusive, I should say. There's an 8-year-old with a Down syndrome who was one of the surfers. It was an inclusive surfing camp, and one of the great aspects of the experience was talking with other parents and sharing experiences.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we were saying. It was that exact same thing.
Yeah. I was not interested in changing anything about my daughter. When they were telling me she has the mental age of a 14-month-old, I said, bring it on. I got to wheel her around in a wheelbarrow the rest of her life. That's fine. It's my honor and my privilege, and I
Yeah.
have no problem. But her suffering was so extreme. So many nights that we woke up to check on her and weren't sure if she had survived the night.
Oh, that's so hard.
She was very, very ill, and I know she was not the only one. I
Right.
know a lot
Has that improved, Maria? Has in terms of, yeah.
drastically.
Okay,
And
good.
and that's concurrent with our identifying and treating um, immune issues,
Hmm.
pandas, and inflammatory issues. It's a whole ball of wax.
It's a whole ball of wax. And yeah, I actually just blogged about that kind of recently in terms of that seems to be one of the areas that's I feel is underreported, under just not discussed very often, kind of in the world of autism. And again, when you talk about the rising numbers of those diagnosed and so much of it seems to be so focused on vaccines only, right? I mean, that's just kind of the lightning rod. But there's a lot of the other issues, pandas and Lyme and some of the other things
Yeah.
that we know are certainly contributors as well, but they just don't seem to get the same level of discussion.
No, they don't. And the vaccine issue is such an emotional issue. It's such an impassioned argument that it's one to hang your hat on, really. It's one, but there are lots of families whose children have never been vaccinated.
Right.
But I have to say, on the other hand, I'm sure immunizations to some immune compromised kids don't help or may not help. Those kids with PANS, for example, if they're being injected with a live virus, they're essentially allergic to with a very immature immune system,
Right.
things could very well happen.
Think things could very well happen, and we know things do happen. I mean, there's
Yeah, that's right.
right, and
But
that's
there's a public health issue there that, yeah, it's a big issue. It's a big problem. And now it's come down to vaccines is everything. We're missing a lot of opportunities with that.
that's it exactly, Maria. That's my concern, is that it's become vaccines are everything. Unfortunately, for kind of a subgroup within our community as well, who are just so impassioned by it. And it's just so focused. And like I said, they're kind of missing the forest for the trees in a lot of ways. But that could be a whole nother topic. I want
Yeah,
to get back to Helios Rising and your vision for it. Where again, it's fairly new. So talk about again what your vision is, what you've done,
very
and
new.
where you see it going.
So as soon as we saw that Ivani was successful with the new version of spelled communication, the newer version, which was spelling to communicate just 2 years ago, um, she couldn't communicate openly at all. At the
Yeah.
beginning, she was just acquiring the skill, but
Yeah. Takes
she
time.
acquired the skill. She was acquiring the skill instead of not being successful at all. So that was pretty thrilling, and I dropped everything and focused on that. And meanwhile, found an old tutor when Ivani was homebound for a short time before the pandemic.
Okay.
A random tutor was assigned, and I had explained presumed competence to her and presuming a certain intelligence, and she ran with it. She treated Ivani like she was intelligent, and then the pandemic hit, and that was the end of that. Ivani
Mm.
was dropped from the school system completely. But but I've remembered that woman and I've called her up and I said, "Hey, you got to see what's going on." And she did. Um, she looked into everything and she became an S2C practitioner. She went up
Oh,
to,
no kidding.
she sure did. Yeah,
Oh, wow. That's a success story.
it
We
is.
need
Yeah, it
more of
was great.
those.
Yeah, because I wanted Ivani to have someone other than me. And
Absolutely.
as this provider was getting her training, I quickly realized that other people need to be doing this. We need more providers. We need people. So she was getting her certification while I worked on pulling together a spelled communication clinic, just very close to my house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we did that, and got a bunch of clients and started teaching them, and then very quickly, because everything happened very quickly. But I had a new energy too. You know
Yeah.
how that feels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, right. We had a future, and I'm gonna do what I can now. Is my job is going to be to nurture that future. So I wanted a spelling community. And we got the provider. We brought in another provider, a nonprofit, who she became a provider as well. And I ended up seeing that there were lots of people in the community who could not afford a provider.
Because it's not inexpensive for those
No,
who don't know. It's
certification is expensive and time consuming.
Yep.
And these providers become clinicians that need to make a living.
Right. Right. Their time,
Mhm.
yeah, their time is valuable, but yeah, unfortunately, it's not covered by insurance. It's all out of pocket, and the cost can be, from what, 100 to $150 per
Yeah,
session, depending on
sure.
who it is and where you are in the country. And that's obviously, that can add up quickly for those who need that
Right.
support. But it's again, we do it. You do whatever it takes. Like the
Right.
how do you put a price on unlocking your child's brain for the first time and letting them out, letting them express themselves?
Right. That's
It's
one
impossible,
thing. Yeah, that's one thing because there's not being able to afford it, which I understand completely.
right?
I see it around me. To not choosing to afford it is a whole different dynamic, and that's, just as valid until caregivers and families understand what this is.
What do you
So,
mean by that? Can you?
we have lots of families contacting us for support,
Okay.
financial relief, materials, letter boards, different letter boards, sensory boards, lessons, um, advice on homeschooling, on how to do presuming competence,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. We welcome families to reach out. And I love it when people take advantage of that because we're free.
Yeah.
We'll tell you whatever we know, wherever we can point you in the right direction, we'll just give it all to you. There are people who reach out to us who could afford it, but feel like it's just another therapy that insurance doesn't cover. And to them, it's not quite a priority because they don't understand it.
Right.
And
Right.
that's
I see.
something we deal with as well to educate families, particularly families of very young children. What they don't know and what that I don't ever tell them is your child is not going to speak the way you think when just because they're getting older. They're not going to improve. They're not going to change.
Yeah. It,
It's a
it
it's a
despite of
sad
what you
truth.
might be told, right? Like, yeah, very, very small percentage are able to emerge from that world of non-speaking or minimally speaking to fully speaking. I mean, I know there are handfuls of examples, but
Absolutely.
it's
That's a
not
general thing.
but that you're right. I think, and again, in hindsight, that's just one of the things I wish I could have changed, is just understanding that there was such the push on speech, speech, speech.
Yeah.
acquiring speech, like and just really kind of ignoring all other modes, even AAC. And again, we tried to a certain degree with Proloquo, and it just didn't work because of Stone's apraxia anyway. But just it was just kind of like, well, yeah, that's fine, but really what we need to work on is the speech, because that's and it again, that's one of my big one of many regrets I have.
Yeah, that is. I mean, there's so many because we have hindsight now.
Yeah.
And it seems very clear now. I really don't have, there aren't a lot of mysteries anymore. Before,
No.
my daughter was mysterious to me. I didn't
Right.
know what she was feeling, how she was feeling, what she was thinking, what she needed, nothing. We knew nothing, absolutely nothing. And, you know, we were okay with it. I didn't need any feedback, but she was a total and complete mystery.
Yeah. And now that's again done a 180. Now you
Right.
can talk to her and say, how are you feeling? What's bothering you? Or is anything
Yeah.
bothering you? One of the great things for me was recently, for the first time, Stone proactively told me he had a headache and asked for ibuprofen.
Wow.
That's a seemingly minor thing in the world of parenting for most, but as you know, that was huge for him to
Huge.
actually say on his own to initiate that and then to ask for ibuprofen to help with his headache.
Wow. Yeah. Initiation is really, really hard.
Yeah, that's the next big hurdle that we're getting over slowly. And in our case, I think it's again another discussion that you and I have. Oh, we talked a little bit about the brain enhancement therapy that he started. I think
Yeah.
the last time you and I chatted, he was just starting that journey, and that's we've seen some really great progress. And that's one of the areas, the initiation. And he talks about how his body finally can do what his brain wants it to do.
That's incredibly exciting.
It is. It's
And the
huge.
timing is just wonderful because now you can manipulate it and use it and get feedback from him.
Oh, it's as you know, it changes everything, even in the form of independent typing. Um, he's able to start doing that. We've been able to start practicing kind of in the same methodology that we did early on with the spelling, but really just start. I'm looking down because we do it here at the desk. I was able to put the keyboard down on the desk and have him type out words with no support whatsoever.
Wow.
Just, yeah. And, type out short sentences. And he knows how to type. That was one thing that he did learn in middle school. He had a great teacher at the time who kind of made sure that he had time to do like data entry and, have some of those real skills. So he knows his way around the keyboard really
That's
well.
great.
But now the hurdle, like I said, initiation and then doing the open thoughts, right? Being able to answer the open questions, just like it was with the letterboard. It's really funny just having going through that process. It's like, okay, we know, it's going to happen. I have no
Right.
doubt it's going to happen.
Right. And every phase you sort of start over from square one, but you
Yeah,
know what to do.
but it's all building, right? It's all building on the success, and it's all exciting, right? As you can imagine,
It's
Stone is
thrilling.
super jazzed. I mean, he's talks about it, just his life is completely different than it was. Looking back 3 years ago, we're kind of coming up in September will be his 3 year anniversary for him.
How awesome. That's great. Yeah, that's
Um,
great.
so this is a good time. Let's go ahead and transition into our fun segments. We're going to start with autism fact or fiction. This is where we like to take like a stereotype or a myth and either prove it or disprove it. But we've got a little intro for all these. I think you'll be incredibly impressed, Maria.
Get QuickTime ready, and here we go. This is Autism Fact or Fiction. We're breaking down what's real, what's rumor, and what might surprise you. Let's go.
All right, so autism fact or fiction. Maria, do you
Love
have
it.
anything that you want to share on your end in terms of fact or fiction?
Yes, I do, because we in our household are on a high horse about this. And that is that autistic non-speakers and people who speak minimally are in there. They are not a certain mental age or grade age, first or second grade or kindergarten. They are completely in there 100%. They understand everything.
Yeah.
They see everything. They see our faces, our reactions to them, our responses to them. And it's something that more families are going to learn, but I wish we had known that much earlier.
Amen. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. And my autism fact or fiction is the statement that there's no scientific evidence supporting spelled communication for for non-speaking individuals. And that is fiction, as you know. We're seeing more studies coming out, such as the eye tracking study that came out from University of Virginia, among others, who are seeing more coming out. And just there's a lot of proof, as you said, kind of tied to the presumed competence that they are more than capable of doing this, and that that it works, and it does, it doesn't need like a certain level of scientific proof. We're seeing it day in and day out as the community grows.
Truly, yeah. That's a big one. That's the big.
Yeah, that is a big one, and one that we're going to just have to continue. And again, I think just as the numbers grow, and the stories grow, and the poems, the letters, and the success stories, that's just over time. That's going to become, I think, a non-issue. But
I
it'll
think so
take time.
too. I think so too. And I think we need to continue to frame it as a human rights crisis right now.
Absolutely, yes.
It is a silent, very profound crisis that disabled, non-speaking people are not allowed access through public systems to access this method of communication. I think
Yeah.
we need to stay upset and outraged as non-speakers gain their voices and they also show their outrage. Um, we need to keep talking. Your programs, your advocacy work, David, all that you're doing, it's really, really important. Really, really great to spread this word.
Oh, thanks. I totally agree. And I think it's going to have to, excuse me, come from us, come from the parents, because unfortunately we're living in a time we're not going to see it under the current federal administration at all. We're seeing a lot of unfortunately, the system's financial support for these rights being cut, right? Being dismantled, being deprioritized. And so it's really going to take much more of a grassroots and community effort to push this forward.
Yes. And even people like me, no bandwidth whatsoever.
Right.
It's a pretty comical sight in our household with how we have to work in shifts with our daughter, be in shifts in life. It's never two of us together, but it's always two of us working really, really hard. But this is worth it. I mean, I think in our lifetime, this is a big, big crisis that we can see resolved.
It's a big crisis. You're absolutely right. And just a tremendous opportunity. As you were saying before, like you look at this community of, non-speakers in general, and you had mentioned like, how are they not more bitter? How are they, yeah, it's the opposite. They are the most selfless, giving, compassionate group I've ever encountered. And that's not an exaggeration, right? To a T, they all
Absolutely.
talk about wanting, like they are so focused on advocacy for themselves and they want to help other non-speakers. And it's almost, it's almost like they've somehow organized on their own
It's
and
really
decided
true.
this.
It's really true. And I think so many of our spellers are older teens,
Yeah. Young
people.
adults. Yeah.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of young kids come in now, but so many of our more seasoned spellers are young adults, right? And they're just professional thinkers. They're wise,
Wise beyond their years. Yeah.
wise beyond their years. They're deep. And it's across the board. It's really, I'm starting to speak in generalizations because
Right.
I
It's
don't
so
see a lot
common.
of exceptions.
No,
And
it's
I'm looking
remarkable.
deeply for them.
Right.
I'm really looking for someone to come forth and say, no, my child is different, or I am different, it's a very homogenous group in terms of energy being put forth
Yeah.
for this movement and for their fellow man and their fellow non-speaking people.
Especially for them. Absolutely. Uh,
Absolutely, it's beautiful.
our next segment is going to be our tip of the week. So we've got a little intro for that too.
Hey parents, gather around, it's time to speak. We're here with your tip of the week. Strategies and wisdom just for you. Autism parents, we know what you go through.
All right, it's time for our tip of the week. Some profound nugget of wisdom that we like to share with the audience. And Maria, I know with all of your experience, you must have something really awesome to share.
I don't, I'm a broken record.
That's
But
okay.
I'm surprised at how many people around me don't just get this from osmosis. But the tip of the week would be to actively allow your non-speaking loved one or minimal speaker, actively allow them to participate in your life, in the household's life, in conversations, in age-appropriate learning and language. It goes back to the presumption of competence, but to me, that's first and foremost, before spelled communication, before everything in the household. A non-speaking or minimally speaking person really has to be included and
I
treated
love that.
capable.
I love that. I love that. I'm gonna like double down on that and just say that it's super important, speaking from personal experience in terms, again, what Stone has shared with me. I'll give you just a quick little anecdote. He loves to go through my iPhone and the thousands of pictures and videos over the years I've taken. He loves to go and he just loves to share pictures, and everyone has kind of a story. There's a reason he's sharing it. And he was sharing a lot of pictures of a few years ago. My dad used to have this vast vintage magazine collection. Like we're talking hundreds of boxes, Maria. Like it was a basement full of vintage magazines he used to sell online before he got away from it. But he wanted them to go to me. A lot of them are sports related magazines. So we said, okay, we'll take them. And we we actually had to build a shed to house them. That's a whole nother story.
Oh,
And
that's volume.
it's like, oh, it's volume, right? So we went down, we rented a U-Haul. They're about 2.5 hours south of us. And so we rented a U-Haul. And the boys were this was about 4 years ago, I'd say. So they were about 14, 15. And it was all hands on deck. And we made them like haul box after box up. And so he was showing me pictures that I took of him carrying a box up to the U-Haul. And he kept doing this. So finally I asked him, like, still, what is it you like about this picture? He's like, this is one of the first times you asked me to help.
Oh, how great.
Right? I mean, again, it seems so small, probably just some people out there, but it's huge. Again, that message that you mentioned, inclusion means so much. He loves cutting the grass, and he does actually a really great job of it now, mowing the lawn,
Very
helping
cool.
around, just being included.
Yes.
Typical teens aside, I was going to say, I think most people don't want to be on the sideline as things are happening, around them. They want to be part of it. You want to be part of the
Yeah.
group.
They want to have the choice.
They want to have that's a good way of putting it. They want to have the choice. Yeah.
Because,
Believe me,
yeah,
it's not
I have a
always met with
neurotypical 17-year-old.
yeah, I was gonna say, but it's not, I would be lying if I said like he was always like super enthusiastic to unload the dishwasher when I asked him, but okay, third segment. This is our parent confessions.
Morning routines can go astray. Found socks in the fridge one day. Laughter's the best remedy. Hey, we're just finding our own way. Mom, dad confessions every week. Sharing joys and moments we seek. On tales that make us unique. Join the club, we're never meek. Tooth fairy left a hole.
Awesome.
Okay, and this is like I like to call it kind of our human. This is our human aspect where we get to like confess to something that may have happened in the past, or we're not necessarily proud of, or just again, it's just hey, we're all human. Things happen, and we have a parental confession to share with others. So I'll let you go first, Maria. Do you have anything?
Okay, yes, I do. And I carry it around with me, always have. Looking back, I was not one of those parents that thought my daughter was in there or my daughter's really smart, whatever that means to people. I didn't think anything at all like that. I was
Yeah.
told that she lost everything in a regression. It was obvious from my observation. She couldn't look at anything directly. She couldn't interact with anything, didn't seem interested doing much of anything. So I just thought that's fine with me. I'll make her happy and comfortable. If I see a smile, I'll do that thing again.
Mm-hmm.
And, she had a beautiful room and clothing that worked for her and little things that were just superficial kind of monuments to a childhood that she didn't really have. But I wasn't one of those parents that thought, she's in there. I'm going to find a way to get to her. And I'm so impressed and amazed by parents who have a daughter like mine who do say, well, I know they're in there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because, I mean, now I think as a population, we know better. But in my defense, 15 years ago and 17 years ago, I just took it at face value. That's what experts told me. And that's what I rolled with.
There was no way to know anything different.
Right.
As I've talked about a little bit on this podcast before, I fall somewhere in the middle. I saw signs early on that kind of showed that Stone, had intelligence, that he was really trying to communicate,
Mm.
and just couldn't. And for me, again, the big wake up call was, do you remember Carly? She was 13, 14-year-old teenager in Canada. She was one of the first kind of public spellers, although she
Yeah,
wasn't
I want
called
to
that.
say I do
It
remember.
became like she was huge in terms of and again, this was her early days of Twitter. She had an account, but she was the
Right.
one who sat down at a laptop and blew
Right.
everyone
On the
away by
show. Right.
communicating, right? And Stone was probably about 4 or 5 when this was happening. She was, a number of years older, but that's when I saw that, I was like, that's Stone. I just knew that must be this. So it was always kind of this quest. But again, my confession is similar. As the years progressed and we couldn't see progress because of
Yeah.
the way he was being tested from a standardized methodology and all these things we know now, that it was the motor preventing it. Um, I began to kind of lose some of that faith and some of that confidence that,
Interesting.
maybe there is a certain level of, intellectual disability there, because it's just look at the numbers, right? And
Sure.
it's just such
And nothing
BS.
wrong with that.
Right.
Except
I mean,
that it's inaccurate.
he was still an awesome, incredible, lovable. I mean, like, again, we had and continue to have an incredibly close relationship, all that, but it's still, as we talked about earlier, still kind of a dark place to be, compared to where we are today.
Yes, right. Yeah. And there are differing comorbid conditions that sometimes come with our autistic kids, especially the ones that do require a lot of support,
Right.
sometimes come with seizures. And, we have the terrible GI issues and all the other issues, and everybody has different things and many of the same things. So yeah, it was very tough adding that to the ball of wax.
Right. The big ball of wax. Well, Maria, we're coming up on the end of our podcast. Unfortunately, we could always talk forever. I want to make sure that if people want to learn more about Helios Rising or reach out to you, do you have any information you want to share?
Sure. You can contact us through our website, which is just a landing page at this point. Maybe
Another story.
I should send it to the web developers, but they're terrific. It's all taking a while, and that's
Sure.
okay. So website is www.helios-rising.org, or see us on Facebook at Helios Rising Access Communication, or you can contact me directly as executive director at maria@heliosrising.org.
Great. Great. Well, Maria, thank you so much for your time, your fire, your passion, your leadership. I know what you're building with Helios Rising is already changing lives and it's going to change many, many more in the future. This is only the beginning.
Thanks so much, David. Great to be with you. Good luck to you. See you soon.
Oh, well, thanks. Yeah. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, share it with a friend, leave us a review. It really does help us grow this movement, reach more families who need to hear these stories. And as always, thank you for being part of the lighter side of the spectrum.